It's time for Remodel Revolution. And now, an award-winning contractor with over 40 years experience. Here is Alex Guthrie.
Welcome to another episode of Remodel Revolution. I'm your host, Alex Guthrie. We're coming to you live from the world headquarters of Remodel Revolution from deep in the heart of the great state of Texas. That's Big D, Big Dallas. We love Dallas. The most desirable city in the United States, sort of. We've got a great show today. We're going to have Phil Crone. He is the big cheese at the Dallas Builders Association. And we're going to talk about why is it taking so damn long to build a house. And then we're going to talk to a really good friend of ours, remodeling expert Bruce Graff. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Well, finally, I've reached a point in my career when a client complains to me about why it's taking so doggone long to do their project. I actually have someone else to blame. I can start pointing fingers at the COVID material shortage and excuse me, the city inspectors and all kinds of stuff. It's really nice. Today's first guest is Phil Crone. He's the executive officer of the Dallas Builders Association here in Dallas, Texas, in Plano, actually. And Phil is all over the news, all over the country, because Dallas is a hot spot for building. And we are having huge issues all over the place, like everyone else. Welcome to the show, Mr. Crone.
Alex, happy to be here.
Yeah, it's great. It's great to see you. So, what we were going to talk about today is that although building lumber has been like the big discussion with cost and delays and getting it and stuff, that's not the only thing.
Yeah, that's correct. And it's interesting because everybody follows the lumber futures chart to almost impart that on the entire supply chain and every single material that's out there. But when you look at the numbers, it's kind of stark here. There's so many things, obviously material-wise, that go into a house. And just over the last 12 months, drywall's up 15%, concrete's up 12%, millwork's up 20%, asphalt's up 10%, and overall materials are up a third if you don't count lumber. Mm-hmm. Lumber went up it basically tripled. Is this inflation, or is this just the building industry? It's interesting, mainly on lumber, but also everything else. We just saw, obviously, a year ago, March and April, everyone's like, oh man, what's going on? Where are we going? Kind of tighten things down, close the factory.
Lots of predictions.
Yeah, and then also the demand. The demand came back right after that happened. We realized we were going to be in this thing for a long time, and they haven't been able to keep up since. And there's probably a few not letting a good crisis go to waste, mm-hmm. but they just haven't been able to keep up with the incredible demand that we've seen, not just in the DFW area, but across the country.
Nationally, well, probably globally, I would imagine. But the materials the things that we talk about, the headliners, mm-hmm. have been the lumber because it was so obvious. But then as I've talked to builders around the country and on this show, I have learned some things, and you're talking about some people not letting a crisis go get wasted. I talked to some folks in Colorado, and in this particular community, they are charging builders $70,000 for a water tap. $70,000. And it's just, and their attitude is, we'll just build it into your cost. And these are the type of things that are really driving this industry into a major slowdown and preventing a lot of people from being able to even qualify to build a house.
Yeah, there's certainly a lot of regulatory challenges out there. I kind of get a little bit of therapy every time I get to talk to my colleagues that are on the coast, because it's way better here than it is there. But it's a cautionary tale, because you see some of these things, some of these attitudes in a few cities that just want to have homes priced at a certain amount. Some are even implying they want to make sure the right kind of people are moving there, which
Whatever
is
that
really
means.
concerning. And,
Yes.
those type of things, we know where this goes, and we know what happens to pricing when there's a shortage.
We've had this discussion all the years that I've been in this business, from time to time, where when a developer comes into and meets with a planner with the city, and they want to bring in a housing development, and they start adding, and particularly when it's a real high volume building environment, the city, it's real tempting for them to just start piling on fees and raising fees and trying to make up some money or take advantage of the situation.
Yeah, and that's why, the good side of things is there are a lot of cities in this area, and there are a lot of ways that there's almost a competition of sorts between them. And the ones that win are the ones that have certainty. You know who you're dealing with, even if they're tough standards. You know how long it's going to take, you know how much it's going to cost, and you know that you're not going to go through the ringer like you do in some places. And that's part of what our association does, is we try to foster those relationships and really let people know what it looks like on our side of the counter. We're trying to build affordable homes for everybody.
And that's what a building association, now we talk about this on this show. Last week I had Carol Longacre on. And we were talking about a reason to hire a builder that's involved in the local trade association. And one of the biggest things, and I told the story about how I used to complain that they would make changes to the building code, and I was the last one to find out. I didn't find out till the inspector got there. And so I would go, okay, who sent it? Well, you honestly, they never send those things out. They send it to the local building association or builders association, and the builders association then tells its members, or you just do like I did and get a red tag. And so, and my point with all this is that you're in touch with not only local builders, businesses, and the cities, but you're national. I mean, you guys have a lot of community. You understand the big picture.
Yeah, we're looking out there with our National Association, NHB, or State Association, Texas Association of Builders, and just trying to keep our head on a swivel. And there are a lot of things coming from Washington, coming from Austin, coming from your local city hall government, that if you're not looking for it, then, one of our old members always says, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. And, we could be a delicious treat for some of these people.
That is actually. And he's right.
Yeah.
He's absolutely right. What should a homeowner, in your view, in your long range look, what do you think homeowners should expect maybe in the next couple of quarters?
Well, I think for all the homeowners out there, the biggest challenge that you have is kind of what I mentioned before. It's certainty, or the lack thereof. And you need to find a builder who will just have an honest conversation about how hard things are to get, what the cost variables are, and set a honest timeline. There are things you can do in terms of ordering things early on, because supply chains are way backed up. Order things, make your selections early on, and have a backup plan, have a contingency, because it's almost like we're playing whack-a-mole right now. And that's what I've been telling the news, just with different things that are popping up and different challenges. And everything, we're seeing this in all parts of society. Things are taking a lot longer. They're a lot more tedious to do.
The world's changed.
And we just have to, best we can, roll with the punches there.
I was talking to a builder friend of mine the other day, and he's got, they get way into the building process. They've got the house built. They've got the walls up and the roof on, and they may have it insulated and sheetrocked, and then they then they order their wood floor and they can't get their wood flooring or their brick, or it's, it's different things at different times. And it just puts a kibosh on anything you're doing. And you can drive around town and you see houses just sitting unfinished. And every time I do that, I'm like, oh, I can look at them and go, oh, they're waiting on windows. Or they're waiting on, I'm laughing. They don't think it's funny because it's costing the builder money, it's costing the bank, or really the home buyer money, because everybody's paying interest on that money.
Yeah, and you look at a lot of, maybe for the previous 20 years, everyone, in terms of supply chain, it was just-in-time delivery. Let's get it in right as we can get it out. I think that certainly has come back to bite us, and we'll probably see people shift to a just-in-case type of delivery in terms of what they look at in their supply chain and all the contingencies. We're seeing it from semiconductors all the way down to refrigerators, lighting fixtures, all the components that go into a home right now.
This seems to me that it started with COVID. Was it happening before that, or did COVID, COVID stopped so many people dead in their tracks in factories and people that provide these materials. That seems to have at least started this chain of events, and nobody's been able to catch up.
We've seen some cautionary tales out there with, you would see what lumber would do if you had a hurricane come through. You'd have, fluctuations in drywall and concrete, but never everything all at once tied to the same global, national, or global disaster in terms of a pandemic here. And that really, I think, is hit home. And just as maybe our grandparents acted a certain way because they went through the Depression, I think we're going to act a certain way going forward in terms of how do we deal with supply chains and how do we think of these contingencies to make sure that we have what we need to get the job done.
And as a business, as a builder or a business person, you're having to sort of almost revisit the way you've been doing business. Things are so different, and you're having to make adjustments on the run. That's never easy for anybody. I don't care what the industry is. So let's talk a few minutes. We got about 5 minutes left. Let's talk about permitting issues in the city of Dallas. It's Phil's favorite subject. He loves going on the news and telling them the big problems.
What a mess. I don't like going on the news. I don't like talking about it. I'm frankly tired of talking about it, but unfortunately that is, especially for everybody that's building and remodeling in Dallas, the biggest challenge right now, where before, gosh, you could walk in 2 to 3 hours, sometimes less, and get a building permit after you bring in your plans, and it was a shining star, better than any other city. And now you saw it devolve in January back to 15 weeks, got a little better in the spring, and now it's kind of creeping back up to the 8, 9, 10 week time frame. And we've got some changes in the work. It's basically 1A and 1B with council right now in terms of public safety and fixing this.
It's sort of like they got off track and they weren't ever able to get back on track. That seems to be what happened. I realize, in all fairness to everybody, this is just the way the world, this is what happened. Basically, I guess 2 years ago now, starting. Everybody sort of had to start making well, it's one thing if you're a business and you've got somebody in place that can say, okay, we're going to do this, this, and this. But when you're a city, or you're a department in a city, a bureaucracy, basically, it is not easy. There is so many pieces to that puzzle, and none of them fit.
Despite their best efforts. Yeah.
They're trying. They don't want this, but I'm still getting phone calls from inspectors that are going, what about this? What about this, from 18 months ago? And I go, I don't know. I couldn't get you people on the phone. I don't know.
Yeah, they're flying blind because a big aspect of this is their system, which is called Project Docs, is just, in terms of the way it was rolled out, an abject failure. And you're only as good as the data that you have, whether you're a city, whether you're a private business. And if your system's not getting the job done, and we knew, in hindsight, that this was going to be a problem because the IT department set it up instead of from a user experience standpoint. And, here we are with a big mess to fix, and it's on one hand, a people problem, and there's got to be accountability there and a reimagination on how they do business. But if you don't have the program to get the data in and to facilitate this when circumstances require you to do it more socially distant, you're in a bad way.
Well, in a lot of the cities and I know a lot of the companies that I was dealing with as a contractor were working from their trucks for no one could go into the office. And this just created a mass confusion on everything. I mean, you can just imagine how hard that is on somebody. So going forward, do you have any feel for, or have they given you any indications how long? Or it seems like they keep trying things, and then they move a little forward, and then they have a step back.
Yeah, I don't have a sense of when I can tell you, hey, it's going to go back to maybe a week or two, but we did in a memo a couple weeks ago lay out very concisely 6 fixes that they can really consider, and chief among them is to get more players on the field, get more help in here in terms of private parties, third parties.
But they're reaching out to you, and which is really vital.
Yeah.
They're reaching out to their clients.
And that's good. It perhaps took us a lot of those media interviews and making a lot of noise to make it happen.
That's
but
what we're there for.
That's what the association's there for.
Right.
So they're not mad at first name, last name, custom homes for being the squeaky wheel. We're doing it on behalf of everybody. It's in our membership.
How are your builders feeling?
I think they're frustrated right now just with the city itself and all the things that we just talked about, because it's that lack of certainty on the materials front, and it's that lack of accountability when it comes to the permitting stuff. I mean, you think about, you and I are sitting here having a conversation that is much more in-depth than what we'd have over a Zoom screen or over the phone. And when you're looking across the counter from somebody who just wants to do business with the city, you're more inclined to help them. It's just human nature. It's not anything unique to Dallas. It's just, that's what we've been missing in a lot of aspects of society here.
Yeah, I think you're right. That's what I was going to touch on. I think our whole world went digital, and all of a sudden, boy, you can see the results of it. After this amount of time. So appreciate you coming in and spending time with us. It's always great.
Anytime. Hopefully next time we're not talking about permitting anymore.
Yeah, maybe we're talking about the boom. Phil Crone with Dallas Builders Association. Next up is a remodeling expert, at least he says he is, my good friend Bruce Graff. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Imagine this, a totally customized, organized, and beautiful master closet. A home office that fits right into a perfect space. A pantry designed specifically for your storage needs. Imagine your home totally organized. It's time to call the design professionals at Closets by Design DFW and turn your dreams into a reality. With a design staff over 30 strong, Closets by Design works directly with you to create your dream space, and they build it locally, helping support the DFW community. Check them out at dallas.closetsbydesign.com or call them at 972-361-0010. Use the promo code RRV to find out about the amazing specials and discounts available. That's dallas.closetsbydesign.com or call them at 972-361-0010. And don't forget that promo code RRV, Closets by Design. Well, remodeling is really huge. I mean, it's always a big business. There's always tons of it going on because almost anybody can do it. I mean, any homeowner thinks they can do it. Let me put it that way. And so a lot of remodels are really what's classified as a remodel as a small project. But I wanted to get the big dog in here. So I called my friend Bruce Graff and Graff Developments, and we're going to talk about the difference between remodeling and renovating. There is a big difference. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank
How
you.
are you?
I'm excellent. I'm glad to be back here in the studio instead of sitting in my kitchen.
Yeah.
Looking at my laptop. I like
Dirty
being
coffee
here.
cups everywhere. It's
Yeah,
embarrassing.
absolutely.
It
Yeah,
was
and the dog
embarrassing.
running through, a little fuzzy tail going by.
It's so good to see you, buddy.
Yeah, absolutely.
So good to see you.
Yeah.
I got an email the other day. Somebody asked me the difference between remodeling and renovating, and I thought, I need to get a real intelligent guy up here, experienced fellow.
And then you settled for me.
And then I found he wasn't available,
Yeah.
so I called.
Yeah.
And so there is a difference. I mean, it just in definition, there's a difference.
Right, right.
And so what are your thoughts?
All right. So basically, renovating is bringing the house up to what it was before in its previous glory, making it look like it did, but kind of newer, fresher. Everything looks a lot better, but still the same, basically the same house, the same, wherever it is interior, the same kitchen, the bathroom, whatever, just some new updated appliances, fresh paint, things like that. This is renovating. Remodeling is where we go in and redesign and just do a complete change, a complete different personality of the house.
So renovating is more like something you would do after a flood. It's more of a bringing it back to what it was, and not. And then if you're not doing it after a disaster,
Right.
then you're just maybe freshening up, and you're.
It's a facelift. If you're somebody older and you get a facelift and you look like you did earlier, somewhat, some kind of, you know what I'm saying. That's your renovation. We renovate, but a remodel is when you go in looking like your old self and you come out looking like John Travolta or something like that. That's a total remodel.
That's just horrible.
Yeah. Or somebody pick your celeb. I don't know.
Well, let's talk about another one that I had coming in, another email that came in, and they wanted to know where do you start when you're remodeling a house? Now, you and I have had many discussions with many people over the years when they'll call us and they'll say, I want to remodel my kitchen,
Right.
or I want to remodel my whole house. And you go, okay, you got plans? No. Well, and then, no, I want you to help me with that. And I'm going, okay. And that's always the first thing I do is I have to make a list. First of all, you have a nice long conversation with the homeowner, and what do you want to do? And then you have to sort of develop a plan to get there, right?
Right.
And so let's start out with the first part of that list. What would you advise?
All right. So typically I do same thing. They call me on and they want to redo. I need a new kitchen. Okay. That's excellent. Do you have plans? Do you have a designer? Anybody? And no, I don't. That's what I need you for. And that's great. I'm glad that they can rely on me to take care of everything. I want to do that. And I'll say, okay, do you mind if I bring my designer over? No. Well, let's set up a time, a meeting. We'll meet over there and let's look through your kitchen. Let's see what's going on. And when we get there, at that point, I don't assume I know. I mean, I walk into the kitchen, I immediately I can see why somebody would want to remodel his kitchen, but I don't bring up to them. It's kind of like when you go see the plastic surgeon and you say, doctor, I need you to do something about this. And he says, I absolutely can fix that nose. And you say, I don't know what's wrong with my nose. I was talking about this ear. You can't assume we're thinking the same thing.
That's hilarious. I love that.
So I go in and I just ask them, okay, tell me, what is it
you don't like about your kitchen?
Yeah, what is it you don't like? What is it you want? What have you seen out there that you absolutely must have? And then we start I call this a discovery. This is what my designer and I, this is our discovery phase. We're there to discover together what they want and where we can go with it. And that's where we start, and then it kind of goes from there.
And so the first thing is deciding why you want to do it, if you want to do it, and of course, most importantly, I think, is
budget.
What you want to do. Well, of course, budget.
Yeah.
Budget. So determining your budget is is probably, well, that's kind of key to everything. And people, it's weird because people have such a different sense of what things cost than often than you and I do. And so they're looking at, they're going in and they're looking on they'll Google, how much does it cost to remodel a kitchen? And then they'll go, wow, man, I can do that for that much? And then they talk to you or me and they're like, well, wait a minute.
Yeah, that's not what Google
How
said.
early do you want to bring that budget question into this discussion?
After we have discussed where they're wanting to go, we've discussed, we're looking at what's bugging them, where they would like to go and all that. And then at that point, I'll say, okay, now I need a realistic budget. And I know a lot of people are reluctant to give you numbers, but it is absolutely critical that we're not wasting each other's time. If I went in to look at a job that's been several years ago, and I'm going through some numbers in my mind. He's telling me everything he wants to do in this job, a big kitchen remodel. And I said, okay, what is your realistic budget? What kind of money are you wanting to spend? I'm not asking them, what are you able to spend? I'm asking you, what are you wanting to spend? Because it doesn't matter how much money they have. How much do they want to spend? And he said, oh, I was thinking I've got about $25,000. I said, we're looking at 75 at least.
I thought you wanted the whole kitchen. You're just talking about the appliances.
That's it. That's it. And he said, well, there's absolutely no way. There's absolutely no way. I said, we just barely touched your granite. And I said, we've got your granite, your cabinetry is 25 probably by itself.
Right.
And then there's a granite. There's all the appliance package. There's the plumbing fixtures and all of this, and in the light fixtures. And I said, we haven't even lifted a hammer yet. We haven't actually done any work. That's just
we haven't started upgrading the electrical and the plumbing that's going to be required to make this thing work.
We're so way off. And I started giving him numbers. Just standing here in your kitchen, this is I can see this is going to cost about this much. Appliance is going to cost about this much. This is nuts. This much. You're wanting to bring gas in, which we don't have here. Gas is on the other side of your house, and we have to bring all that over here. Everything is permitted, inspected. And so I started going through the numbers, and he said, basically, okay, well, I'll get back in touch with you. So I knew that was the end of that conversation.
Right.
And about 3 months later, it was about 6 months later, I was at a NARI convention in our National Association of Remodeling Industry. I was at a get-together there, and I was talking to another contractor buddy of mine, and he said, hey, I'm actually doing a kitchen that you went and looked at for Mr. So-and-so. And I said, really? I said, what did that come to? And he said, about $76,000. I was off by $1,000, just guessing. And the guy did it, but he didn't want to call me back and say, guess what, you were right.
Well, I've had this very thing happen many times, particularly this conversation. But for a long time, I assumed that, and this is when you're a young contractor, and you assume that if they called you, they're going to have the money, or if they want it bad enough, they'll find a way to get the money.
Right.
So I would go through this whole process of pricing it. I would spend hours and hours laying it out, pricing it, working the numbers so I could give them a realistic number. Well, if I'd had the conversation that we just talked about, what's your budget?
Yeah.
I could have saved us all so much time and heartache. And so that is really, that is really, really important. So let's.
Well, it is. Let me add to that, because doing proposals, I absolutely hate it. It is. I would rather get a root canal than do proposals because my proposals are so detailed. It takes me days to put together a proposal because I have it on pages and pages. And I absolutely hate that because I'm so detailed. I think through every single step, and it's listed on there so that when we get to that point when we're doing the job and the client says, "Are we doing this?" I'll say, if it's not in that proposal, I hadn't planned on doing it. If it is in the proposal, I'm doing it. I have it listed out right there. But that's where I learned is like when we bring up a budget early and we start talking about it, and then they're still okay with it, Then when we're doing the design work, my designer's working in that direction, knowing here's our budget numbers. We're going to try to stay within that range, you know. And then when I do my proposal, it still comes in within that range. I hadn't wasted all this time.
Well, and people just don't realize, nor many of them appreciate the amount of hours and hours it goes in. I mean, you can't, these numbers you don't just pull them out of the air.
No.
You have to figure out the square footage, and you have to set a reasonable square foot cost, you know, estimate or allowance or whatever, which I love the word allowance.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't do allowances. I hate allowances, and people don't realize that's in their best interest that I don't like allowances. It is saving them because there's too much leeway for me. If you leave allowance and then I come back and say, oh, that allowance isn't nearly enough, I'm going to add a whole lot to it. My numbers are to the penny. That's what it's going to cost you when I'm done with it. You know?
Well, I have found that I've lost that argument so many times. I just put allowance in there and let them go. There's certain times when they just want what they want, and and they don't want to be talked out of it. They don't, they just don't. They really don't want to be talked out of it. Your clients, are they coming to you now with design teams? How does that affect your process?
They don't. Generally, they don't have their own designer. They are relying on me to have that person. But if for some reason they do have a designer, I'm fine with that. I work with a lot of different designers. So if they have their favorite designer, that is the key here, is that they are comfortable with whoever they're working with. If they love this designer, I want them to keep their designer, because as long as we get along, you know, it's a personality thing. And because it's important that they like me too, because if you're going to be writing large checks to people, you need to kind of like them.
Yeah, at least when you start.
Yeah. So no, I don't have a problem with that. I enjoy meeting new designers. Any new designers out there that need new contractors, I like that.
So currently, we're experiencing all kinds of challenges everywhere for all kinds of things. What do you see as challenges in the remodeling industry during this sort of COVID crazy time?
You touched on it before with Phil, and that is we have some really strange products that we are missing out there. My cabinet guys builds all of my cabinets for me. He said, I said, how are we coming with cabinets? He said, well, I'm great on the boxes. He said, I have no hardware. He said, this has never happened, but I cannot get any hardware for this. My flooring person, and you mentioned this also, she said, what size planks are we going in with? And I said, 5-inch. She said, not happening. And I said, so are we back ordered? She said, no, they won't even let me order it. That's how far behind 5-inch planks are. We had to settle on a 4 or 6. And then the oddest one, which has nothing to do with COVID, it has to do with this weird, freeze that we went through in March. Paint.
No, paint, you can't get it.
Paint it all froze in all the factories and all the warehouses.
I did not know that. I did not know that's what it was.
Yeah, that's what it was.
I just know I talked to my painter and he goes, I'm running all over town just to get 5 gallons of paint.
Just basic paint. And it's because of the freeze. It all froze, and that's never happened before.
Oh my gosh. I had no idea.
Yeah, that's a weird one.
Well, we had an email, and I don't remember if I did the segment or not. I like doing these segments where people email me, and it's the Ask Alex segment coming up after this. And one of them was, when's the best time to paint the outside of my house? And when's it too hot, and when is it too cold?
Right.
And because we've always had these challenges in our business, especially when you're on a project that's going to go through seasons, right? So you start in the spring, because everybody wants to start in the spring, but then about time the fall comes, 2 or 3 months later, then you might be at the finished part of it, the outside part, and people make mistakes. They go, well, it's sunny for an afternoon, I'm going to go out there and paint the outside of the house, and then it freezes at night.
Yeah.
And then about a couple years later, they're going, wow, all that paint's peeling off the house. What's the deal? Well, it froze. Or it can do it at the time. So that's fascinating that happened. Now, are you having any more luck getting things like appliances, or are we still dealing with that?
No, that's another thing. Luckily, this comes down to your supplier. The people that you're working with. I have a great supplier called me on a job he knew that was coming up. That I still hadn't turned in the proposal. We still didn't know how much this kitchen was going to cost, but we did know the appliance packages we were looking at. And he said, "Look, if we don't order these appliances now, there's a good chance we won't get them until November." Mm-hmm. So I called the homeowner and I told them this, and they said, "Well, let's just go ahead and order them." It was $35,000 worth of appliances. We went ahead and wrote the check and placed the order on them 2 months ago. And I at that point, I still had not given them a proposal for this whole project. So they were kind of locked in. That was a good thing. But, and we are in the middle of it.
Thank you, COVID.
We are knee deep in the middle of this project. It's a good sized project out in South Lake. And, so luckily we got in most of our appliances by now, but there are still 2 of them that are back ordered that I still won't get until November sometime. But that's key, is that working with the right team of people that know you, that respect you, and have worked for you for a long time. My people will call me ahead of time and say, "I need to give you a heads up." The Kohler people, my Kohler rep called and said, "I know you've got a bathroom coming that you're doing proposal on. We have our prices are getting ready to go way up next month. I need to let you know that right now if you want to get those ordered now." And so same thing happened. They went ahead and cut me a check for all of our product.
The interesting thing that you brought that up is, of course, we've always dealt with that, particularly like windows. And the window salesman would call us up and say, "Oh, we're going to have a price increase in 6 weeks. We need to get that ordered." Of course, I was like, "Dude, you're just trying to get your commission check, right?" And so that's not true anymore.
No.
It's actually happening.
It is.
And everything is getting hammered price-wise.
Yeah.
And what people have to understand is that we're talking everything from concrete, everything from the steel that goes in the concrete itself, the sheetrock, the mud.
It literally is. It's in some appliances. And in some appliances, they have all of the product to build the appliance, except for the foam. The manufacturer that make the foam shut down for 3 months. And now they're so backed up on the foam for the insulation, you know what I'm saying? And it's just one of those weird products that is holding everything up.
So we're having to learn a little patience as a society. And trust me, if you're in our business, we don't have much patience. We never have. Everybody particularly when you're in a remodel, you just want to get done.
You want to get done because you don't realize whatever money you hopefully would make on the job until the end of the job, until that last check, because you're still paying all of your subs, you're buying product. And all this is, you know what I'm saying, this is money you're paying.
It's stretched out.
You stretch it out. So when they say, "Oh, you can't finish your job for another 3 or 4 months because of this 1 or 2 products," that really hurts.
Sure, you're still paying your overhead. You're still buying gas. You're still paying insurance. You're doing all that stuff coming out of your pocket that normally those payments compensate you for.
Yeah.
And so it used to be called profit and overhead. Sometimes it just turns into overhead.
Just enough to keep you going.
That's right.
And what we hate to do as contractors is ask for another draw before we are ready.
Well, it just gets you in a hole.
Sure,
I mean, you look up at the end of the job and you're like, "Well, now I'm coming out of pocket." Hate that.
I do too. It's like, so, if people out there that are watching that, if your contractor needs to ask you for another job, believe me, it's not because he wants to.
Be kind.
Yeah.
Well, how are you feeling about the next few months? Are you still getting a lot of leads?
I still have designers out there working on projects. That I like that while they're working, I'm doing my remodeling. Designers are over here doing their thing. And so, we're still getting people, we're still getting jobs lined up. And
Is the size of the jobs changing any? Is it getting better? Is it getting bigger,
they're larger.
smaller?
Most of them are larger now, which I like. I like that a lot. Every now and then I'll get a small one in there, which is a good filler.
filler,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's a good filler in between two big ones. I like those smaller jobs. And so I don't know. I'm comfortable right now. I hate to say where we're going to be because
Well,
nobody
just get
knows.
ready.
Yeah, yeah. But
It's
we're okay
great.
right now.
It's so great having
would-
you come in.
yeah.
I really do appreciate it.
Absolutely, I enjoy it. Yeah, I would tell you though, people that are at home, and now's a great time to remodel, but just because you're stuck at home looking at the same old stuff,
Mm-hmm.
let's upgrade and at least be happy when you come home at the end of the day.
Yeah.
You're in a great environment,
Well, there's and those changes can be large or small.
Yeah,
absolutely. If you're officing out of home, or your kids are homeschooling or whatever, it might just be a room you need to fix, or you might not want to take more than that on if you've got everybody there. You want it to be kind of a controlled remodel as much as you can, which is always size and what you're doing. So anyway, thank you.
Yeah,
Appreciate
absolutely.
you coming in.
Yeah,
It's always
I
great
enjoyed it.
having you here.
Absolutely, let's do it again.
Yeah, let's do it again. I like that jacket. You're looking
Thank you,
slick,
thank you.
looking good.
Well, I realized the last time I was on here, I wore the same shirt,
Yeah.
and I thought, well,
But
if
you
I throw a
had
jacket
your
on-
wife's glasses on,
Yeah.
and it went well with it. So we got lots of compliments on
Oh, yeah,
that.
okay, good.
We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to have the Ask Alex segment. Stay tuned. It's only a few short weeks until we'll be running our air conditioners all day and all night. Hey, it's time to get an HVAC tune-up scheduled. Call my friends at Total Air and Heat in Plano, Texas at 972-881-0020 right now and get on their schedule for a tune-up. Don't wait for the long lines. Get ahead of the crowd. Total Air has been servicing North Dallas and Plano and Richardson areas for over 60 years. Steve and Justin Lawton sell and service Carrier brand heating and cooling systems with Green Speed Intelligence technology. So give them a call at 972-881-0020 or contact them at totalair.com. Alex is one of the most common questions asked before somebody starts a remodel. What home improvements add the most value? So I asked my guest, my friend, Mr. Bruce Graff, who is also a remodeling contractor, to sit in with me and have this discussion with me. Mr. Graff, how are you?
Excellent.
Good. What improvements add the most value? And I don't know if there's an absolute to that, because one of the things that comes to my mind originally is if you're talking about remodeling your home, what is it that adds the most value to you, to your comfort or your whatever reason you're thinking about remodeling?
Right.
It's a little bit of an open-ended question.
And how long are you going to stay in the house? That's the big deal, is because a lot of people are saying, what can I do that is going to make my house worth more, because we're going to be selling here in about a year? Well, that's a different question, or that's a different answer than we're going to be here for 20 years.
Right, and I've always told people that, we always, in this country, we have, I call it the 5-year plan. It's like, Alex, I'm only going to live here for 5 years. And so I don't want to outspend my ability to sell it. I don't want to outprice the neighborhood. And I always tell them, young fella, the 5-year plan turns into a 20-year plan most of the time. Although I understand that on average, people only stay in homes 7 years. I can't imagine that, but that's
I
what
can't
they,
either.
that's what they say.
I haven't done that at
Yeah,
all.
me either.
I've been in and out for a long time.
Who wants to move every 7
No kidding. I keep adding to all the stuff I've got. I don't want to move that.
But so you have to determine really, why is that question being asked? Is it being asked because you're going to resell your house? Is it going to be, are you asking that question for your own comfort? Like Bruce said, you need to sort of determine, and I will always ask them, and Bruce probably does too. One of the first questions I ask you is that, why are you doing this? What made you decide to, well, my kitchen's old, it needs to be updated. Okay, that's fine. Then let's remodel your kitchen for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And something, I had a conversation with a guy about his bathroom. He was saying his wife wants to remodel, but she doesn't want, he said, I don't want to do it yet because we're going to be selling about 5 years. And I said, consider this, go ahead and spend that money, that $50,000, $70,000, whatever you want in your bathroom, spend it now, and then you get to enjoy that bathroom.
For 5
and then
years.
you sell it, and then you sell it. Make your money on that, but you enjoyed it. I don't think it makes any sense though.
It's kind of like when you're buying a new car. It's like, I don't want to buy that new car and spend that much more money. I'm going to buy a used car, a clunker. It's cheaper. Well, no, you buy that new car because you want all the new stuff and the comfort in
That's
it,
it.
and you're going to enjoy it for 4 years or whatever it is before you sell it.
Plus,
again.
why would you wait and remodel for the next guy?
Well, and that's what happens now. So what happens now is the realtors and the potential buyers of that home you're going to sell, they're going to have it inspected, and the inspector's going to come, the home inspectors, and say this needs to be done, that needs to be. So there's always this negotiation process that takes place about, is the buyer going to fix this, or how are you going to do all that stuff? Well, you take that question off the table. You've remodeled the bathroom. And so the next person, and this is another thing that I always tell people, remodel it. First of all, they go, we don't know what to do so that it'll sell better. And I go, do exactly what makes you happy.
Yeah.
Because the next person is probably going to look at it and say, wow, they did a great job. Or they may not. They may say, God, who picked that color?
Yeah.
But you can't control that.
No, and like in bathrooms, the question I get all the time is about the bathtub. And they'll say, oh, we're going to put a big bathtub in here, blah, blah, blah. And I'll say, okay, are you going to use that bathtub? No, we never use a bathtub. Why are we putting it in here? Well, because aren't we supposed to put that? Isn't the master supposed to have a bathtub? And I said, no, this is your house. You're going to live in this thing. If you don't take a bath, don't worry about putting that bathtub. Do we have a bathtub downstairs? Yes. Well, then it's in the guest bathroom. Good. You've got a bathtub for anybody that needs that.
Right.
You
put a water
bathroom.
feature in there.
Yeah. You do this bathroom. This is for you. Whatever you want. If you don't want a bathtub, keep it out. Let's enlarge that shower. Let's do a really grand bathroom without a bathtub that is worthless, because that's a lot of real estate that a bathtub is taking up. And a lot of money, so don't do it.
We've sort of focused on this bathroom, but the question is, what home improvements add the most value? So we know things like kitchens, bathrooms add a lot of value now, but things are changing. Things are evolving in housing and in our really it's a societal change. Energy efficiency is a huge part of what we're doing now.
Right.
So
Windows.
Insulation in the attic. Do you have radiant barrier in your attic? There's all these things that you can do.
LEDs throughout.
Yeah. Then the question is, well, how do I justify that expense? What's my payback? And so that's a discussion you have to have when you're doing things like energy efficiency. It's sort of like, if you're going to put solar on there, what's the payback? Well, there ain't none. But there's a smaller bill every month, but the cost of it, up front, you may not ever get that back. Who knows? Especially if you're not going to be in there for 25 years. But these are the discussions that you need to have. And what adds the most value? Well, are you going to sell your house? Then we need to do things like curb appeal. We need to do a kitchen. We need to do things that someone walks in and said, I'll tell you, most of the people I talk to, most of the time, either the husband or the wife will walk in and say, I love this about this house. It might be the master bathroom. It might be the shop in the garage.
It's the island in the kitchen.
It's some little thing that catches them, and they go, this is the house we're buying.
Yeah. But you never know what that is, though, but it is something. But I'll tell you, the cheapest thing you could do through the house to change its appearance, if that's your thought, how can I add value to it to sell, is paint the thing. Paint is probably the cheapest thing you can do in the house, and update it and freshen it, and it smells fresher. You walk in, you feel better. Get rid of these dark drab colors, lighten it up.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
It's a psychological thing when you walk into a house and it's fresh and new and neat.
Yes. And it smells fresh and new.
It does. Yeah.
Takes all that old stuff out of it.
Get rid of old carpeting that's been holding years of smell, odor. Change that out. Put fresh carpet or put hardwood floors or something. You know what I mean? I think those add a lot of value to the house. Yeah.
Well, now that we've solved that question, I wanted to say thank you.
Absolutely. Again,
I appreciate your advice.
Yeah.
Not that I could afford to paint my house. No, that was at the Ask Alex segment today. Thanks for sending it in. Send in any questions that you've got to alex@remodelrev.com, alex@remodelrev.com. Contact us on Facebook. Go to our YouTube channel and subscribe. You get to see Bruce Graff over and over and over again. It is amazing. It can make your day. Like us on Facebook, subscribe to us on YouTube. We're on all social media. Also, don't forget our podcast. Check out our podcast, Remodel Revolution, on any podcast site. We're on Apple, we're on Pandora, we're on all Spotify, we're on all of them. And also go to Texas Weather Tracker TV on Saturday, 9 and 11, and see this whole thing replayed again on Roku, Apple, and some other TV that I never can remember. Thanks a lot for watching. I hope you have a great week. Until next week, this is Alex Guthrie signing off.
The views and opinions of this program are for educational and entertainment purposes only and are not intended to replace the recommendations of a hired professional. You can catch Remodel Revolution anytime. Follow the show on the website, remodelrevolutionradio.com, or on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and Pinterest, using the handle @Remodel Revolution Radio. You can always listen to the show on iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, and TuneIn, and watch the show anytime on YouTube.